Right, this is another video for my students. I've in previous videos drawn this simple design for a vacuum form case. Still lots of improvements that you can make to it, but we're not going to worry about that for the moment. Just trying to run through some skills. So we've made this little panel on the top. I've radiused one corner. You probably want to radius all of them, and maybe this will be a switch panel, so we want to have a switch on top. Now let's just check. So we've got a selection tool, and that is grouped. You can see that that's grouped because when I click on it once, it's got all this blue going on around it, so it's not ungrouped. That's good because then when I draw on top of it, the things I draw on top are not going to get stuck onto it and then cause a problem when removing them. So let's draw using the rectangle tool a shape for the switch. Now I've just jotted down some numbers, and the external bezel for the switch measures 21mm, so I'm just going to type 21, comma. Now if you notice bottom right hand corner of the screen, it shows you these dimensions as they're being typed in, so 21mm, comma, and then 15mm. Now I press enter, and so there we are. And then I'm going to then use the push pull tool, so I press P, and then I can lift this up. Now remember, this is the outer bezel of the switch, which I think is something like about 2mm high, so I press 2, press enter. So that looks reasonable. Let's zoom in a little bit more now. Now, as I say, that's the outer bezel of the switch, so there's like the inner part, which is the bit that pushes through. That is inset by about 2.5mm all the way around. It's fairly even. So let's use the offset tool here. And go to, oh, hang on, what I need to do is just click that face, I think. Now choose the offset tool, and then I can pull in. I will be able to in a moment. There we go. I can pull in like that. But you need to pull in by about 2.5mm. It doesn't need to be totally accurate. Don't get overwhelmed by the need for accuracy. It's supposed to be a realistic sort of looking drawing. It doesn't have to be absolutely accurately dimensioned. So let's pull in, and then I will type 2.5mm. So just 2.5. Press enter, and then it's inset that about 2.5mm. So that looks good. And then I press P for the push pull tool. Then I can, oh hang on, let's just undo that, and then I pull that up like so. How much is that up? I haven't measured it, but I would estimate, just looking at the switch, which is next to about 3mm. So 3, and then press enter, and I think that looks quite reasonable now actually. So let's just zoom out a little bit, have a look around. So it doesn't look a bad representation of the switch. Now many of you have used a white button with a grey surround, so let's do that. So, and as soon as it's got colour, it actually starts to look much more realistic. Having the shading on is a good thing as well. I think if you go onto view, shadows, not shading, shadows, if you enable that, so it's disable that, then if you add shadows, then it just looks, for minimal effort, it just looks much better. There we go. So it actually doesn't look too bad at all, does it? Now if I press the space bar, that gives me the selection tool, that one up there, the black arrow. If I just triple click that, now that selects all of those things, but not what I drew it on top of, because remember that was grouped separately. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to right click and I'm going to make that into a component, because that sort of makes sense to me to have that as a component. So I will define this as white PTM, push to make switch. Don't have to do this, but let's just say it's going to glue to horizontal surface and click create. And then if I M for the move tool, and then I press control and then I drag along here, then you can see that I can have lots of things like that. Okay, so yeah, for minimal effort there, I think that is pretty minimal there. You can actually get some quite decent looking, fairly realistic looking switches.